Hello, everybody. I believe that we are officially live. So welcome. I hope you're all having a wonderful Sunday and a wonderful weekend. It's a beautiful, beautiful day here today. So I've been really enjoying outside, going for some walks. I'm going to wait a couple minutes for everyone to make their way in before we officially start. So while everybody's coming in, how about let me know something that you did this last weekend that was fun. I see a couple people coming in. Hooray. So we've got Michael, Kat, Candy, Andrew. Hello. Yeah, so this today, because we've been looking, we're in this whole like quarantine thing for sure. So stay at home. So I ended up, my fiance and I went out for coffee, which is something that we used to do all the time. But today we decided that we were going to go anyway. We went through the drive-thru and then sat in the car. And that was really, really cool and a really fun way to get out, do something. We kind of, after sitting in the car, we walked around for a little while and just had our coffee that way instead of sitting in a coffee shop. So yeah, that was one way that we tried to kind of make this situation work for us this weekend. So yeah, what have you guys been up to? Kat found a new place to skate outside, and I believe Kat, that I saw on Instagram of you actually roller skating backwards up a hill, if that is correct. And I believe it is correct because I know that you are extremely skilled in your skating. So this does not surprise me if that's what it is. Jamie, hello, welcome. Heather. Michael says it's raining and dreary. Hopefully the sun will come out soon. All right. So looks like we've got a few people. I've got a couple different screens with this Zoom to give you the multiple cameras here. So hopefully I won't have to go back and forth to see the comments too much. I'll try to answer them as they come in, as I see them. If I miss one, I'm really sorry. I will always go back. By the way, I promise to go and answer the questions either at the end of the stream here or in Discord if I miss them. Facebook can make it kind of difficult to see all of the screens, or all of the comments. Michael took a long walk and looked about volunteering. That's absolutely fantastic. Michael, let me know too, different things that you found for volunteering in this time where we're all social distancing, because all the things that I normally do for volunteering are closed right now. So I love that you're looking into ideas for that. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to come back here and really get started. I'm going to throw this actually in the oven to start. Now, what we're going to be doing today is going to be a one-sheet meal prep. So this is not like a full 21 meals, like 3 meals a day for 7 days meal prep. This is going to be a beginner level 1 meal prep that we can do super easy, does not take a lot of time. It's one of my favorites too if I kind of like forget to meal prep and I don't have a ton of time. And I just need to do a quick meal prep at the end of the night. This is one of my favorites to do for that. But I wanted to start with this because one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make when they come in and they're like, okay, I would like to do meal prep. And the first thing that a lot of people do is, you go on the internet and you look up 21 different recipes because it's 7 days, 3 meals. And then like before you even get to the store, it's super overwhelming and feels like you can't do it. And starting out kind of with just making one thing can make it a lot easier. And then as we go and as we practice and as we do this a little bit, we can start to add complexity to it. But I find that this just one sheet, one meal prep is really a great place to start, not only if you've been doing this for forever or if you're brand new to this overall. And what we're going to be making today is going to be a chicken, vegetables, and sweet potato recipe. These meals are one of my favorite meals to make overall with chicken and broccoli. Like those are 2 of my favorite foods anyway. But I do want to say that, you see a lot of stuff on like Instagram and on the internet, these super complex meal preps where it's chicken and broccoli for every single meal. like all week. And that is not what you have to do as a part of meal prep. We just happen to be making chicken and broccoli today because it's easy and because it's a really healthy meal to make. But I'm not expecting you to eat chicken and broccoli every single meal, every single day for the rest of your life or anything like that. It's just a really easy meal to eat. And a lot of the meal preps that you see on like Instagram and stuff like that, where it's a bodybuilder or someone doing it like that, that is, they eat chicken constantly because that is going to help them hit their goals. And that's really easy, a way for them to hit their goals, but it might not be the best way for you to hit your goals, especially if one of your goals is variety. And that's totally fine if one of your goals is variety. But we're going to start off today. I'm going to show you what we've got here. So for tools, I've got a baking sheet here. This is just a standard baking sheet. I've got some aluminum foil as well. I'm going to line this sheet with aluminum foil to make cleanup easier. You can also use parchment paper or nothing at all. I like aluminum foil. I try to reuse it as much as possible when I can. This is just your standard aluminum foil. And I will also talk about, because it can be really helpful depending on the cut of meat that you chose, to use some. But I've got some there. It is optional, or you can use parchment paper instead. The next thing that I've got here, I've got two different cutting boards. So I've got a larger cutting board and a smaller cutting board here. The size doesn't really matter. The reason why I have two is because I'm going to be making both meat and vegetables. And it's a really good practice to use a different cutting board for your meat than you use for your vegetables, just to kind of prevent cross-contamination. If you only have one cutting board, all you want to do is just wash it really good between the vegetables and the meat. I generally like to start with cutting the vegetables and then go to the meat. So if I'm using one cutting board, I'll cut up all my vegetables, then wash it, and then go to my meats. For types of cutting boards and everything like that, we'll talk about that a little bit on my next stream that I'm doing, which is kind of like setting up your kitchen for success overall. Some people will tell you that plastic for meat, but you can use wood for meat as long as it is well taken care of and cleaned in between each use. So I'm going to be using the smaller one for the meat and the bigger one for my vegetables. In addition, I also have just a bowl and a little just measuring spoons. These are optional. They can just be really helpful, especially at first when you're starting to really get a feel for eyeing things and eyeing like measurements and stuff like that. So for ingredients, what I've got here is just some olive oil. This is just some basic extra virgin olive oil. I've got salt and pepper. So I've got just a basic, this is a coarse kosher salt. This is just a basic peppercorn grinder. You can use any sort of salt and pepper that you want. This is just what I have and like. So those are the ones that I'm using. You can also, in addition, use other spices if you want to. Now, a standard spice mix will work really well here. I'm gonna grab one here, grab one out. Like this is like a taco seasoning, like something like this mixed spice, or this is one of my favorites as well. Just like a seasoning here. These can be really great on the chicken if you want to use them. The reason why I am not going to use any spices other than salt and pepper today is because I'm making a bunch of chicken with this. And if I make all of my chicken with the same spices, that means it's going to be the exact same meal every time. And if I keep it more plain, then I can add different sauces. So I can make like a teriyaki chicken, I can make a barbecue chicken, I could cut it up and put it into tacos, talk about the taco seasoning. So I can take that same chicken that I've cooked and really use it to make a ton of different style meals. So if I get really bored with the chicken that I made, I can just put a different sauce or spice on it. And if I put, say, like a taco seasoning on it, I'm not really going to be able to then make a teriyaki chicken out of that same chicken later this week. So that's why I prefer to meal prep more plain. But if you want to do all of it with spices, that's fantastic and a great thing to do as well. So we've got the olive oil, the spices. I also have some spray olive oil. I'm going to use this for the sheet there. And then I have some vegetables and some chicken that I've already kind of prepared. So I've got some chicken breast here. And for this recipe, normally I actually prefer chicken thighs, just personally. I like the higher fat content. I like how it heats up really well. But I'm choosing chicken breast for this recipe because it is a lower fat content, which just means that when it cooks on the pan, there's going to be less juices that will get onto my broccoli and my potatoes. Now, I will show you a way I mentioned with the aluminum foil to kind of prevent that from happening. But I chose chicken breast because I wanted a less fatty cut for this dish. And we are going to make sure that it does not end up super dry, by the way. For our vegetables, I have chosen broccoli and carrots. And if you came to my stream on vegetables on Friday, you'll know that these are the exact same vegetables we cooked there. These are still the same batch that I got at the grocery store. These are some of my favorite vegetables, so this is what we are using, partially because of that, but also because these have been available at every single grocery store that I've been to lately, and other vegetables have been much harder to find. So like Brussels sprouts are a favorite of mine. They've been harder to find. Asparagus has been harder to find. Zucchini has been harder to find, at least for me personally. So these are ones that I've been very easily able to find. So I've got some broccoli and some carrots, and I've cut these up into small pieces. I'm gonna talk more about that in a second. And then I also have some sweet potato that I have cut up into some small pieces here. Now, with everything, I'm just gonna break that apart. Here, so the first thing, we've got all of our ingredients here. The first thing that we are going to do is I'm just gonna take this sheet here. I'm going to line it with my foil. Hopefully this won't make too much noise for you. I'm just going to lay this down. And then I'm just going to take my nonstick spray. And this one's new, so it kind of gets really excited. So we're just going to try to be gentle and only do a little. It was a little more than I wanted, but so you just need a very light coating. This is probably a little too much. Like I mentioned, it's brand new, so it just kind of goes a little faster than I'm used to. So we will have our sheet there, and I'm just going to set that off to the side for now. Now, the next thing that I'm going to want to do, I'm going to need a knife too. So I've got one here, and I'm just going to wash this because I don't remember the last thing that I cut with it. I believe it was a vegetable, but I've got a knife here, and I have already washed my vegetables, by the way. And let's actually just start with the carrots here. So for the carrots, out of all of the vegetables that we have today, carrots and the sweet potatoes are going to take the longest to cook. They're going to take about 10 minutes longer than the broccoli if we were just kind of like leave them standard sizes. So I've cut the carrots up into fairly small pieces, as you can see here. But all I did here is I actually bought a bunch of baby carrots. Because baby carrots are basically just full-size carrots, and then they, at the plant that they are processed, they are cut up and peeled and turned into things that look like this. So they're the same thing, and it's just kind of a time saver. You can absolutely peel and cut your carrots if you want to. I don't like to do that, so I just buy the baby carrots. That being said, I did cut some of the larger ones into halves just because I want them to kind of cook evenly. And if you have like a carrot that is bigger, like let's just say these from my stockpile, this is going to cook faster or slower than one that is cut in half. So I want to cut these into fairly small pieces, and I want them to be fairly even too, so that the carrots all cook at the same time. So I've just cut them into halves. A couple of them I've left as their normal size because they just came much smaller. But like this one, it's just smaller. So there's the carrots. For the sweet potato, this is, got all of these cut into pieces here. This is a fresh one. I believe in the instructions I said to bring like 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 medium-sized sweet potatoes. All I could find were super small ones, so I used 4 or 5. But I wanted to show you, I didn't want to use this entire stream on cutting up vegetables, but this is how I did it for this one potato. So all I did here is I just cut the tips off, and then just came here and cut off. This knife, by the way, is very dull. So I'm just trying to be careful here. And so because this knife is dull, I don't trust to do it this way. So I'm just gonna flop it over onto its side and kind of do some slices this way. And then I'm gonna do some slices back here with this piece and some slices here with this piece. And then I just cut them in half. And you can really do whatever method you want here. But the idea is that we get some fairly small, even-sized pieces across the board so that they all cook around the same amount of time. So I'm just gonna add those to my sweet potato bucket here. Move that out of the way. And then the next thing we are going to do, these ends, by the way, I'm just gonna use those in compost for our broccoli here. So the broccoli, you can see I've got a bunch of small pieces all cut up, all of the florets here. And all I want to do is I've got this head of broccoli. I've already washed all of my vegetables, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that with the sweet potato. I washed these ahead of time. So that is something that is a part of this, but I did those ahead just so you don't have to sit and watch me wash vegetables. So for broccoli, I just wanted to show real quick how I cut this to get the florets off. And all I did here is, so I've got the stem. I'm just going to cut the stem off. And this is something, by the way, that you can save this and use it for soup or like a vegetable stock, something like that. If you have a guinea pig or a rabbit, they would really like this too, just kind of a little snack. My dog is also here. I don't know if you can see him in the stream, but he also loves this broccoli stems. I don't know why. So he's gonna be quite happy to have that. So you can see he also just came over because he smelled that I was making broccoli. So anyway, cut the stem off, you can keep it, you can throw it away, you can compost it, but you can use it for other things later on if you want to. Now you'll see that a couple of the florets just kind of fell off naturally because they don't have the stem left. So all I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go in and I'm basically going to cut off all the trees this way. And I'm just going to cut them off at the stems. And I wanna do it this way instead of just taking the broccoli and just kind of mashing down on it with a knife here. And I'm going to show you why in a second, because we're going to do that with one of them, just to show you. You can cut off as much or as little of these stems as you want. I generally like more of the stem than less of the stem. But just go in and cut off all these little trees, the little happy trees. And just kind of go in here. And you can even kind of break it apart with your hands a little bit. As it starts to come apart. And so I'm gonna take this one. Actually, let's just cut some of these others up a little more. And you can kind of make them smaller. And I've got some fairly small pieces already. So I'm gonna just kind of go in from the bottom on this broccoli and cut those. That one's a small enough piece already. You can throw that in there. So this is why I didn't want to do all of the broccoli on the stream as well, because it just kind of take a couple of minutes. But I find it really relaxing to sit and cut up all of my vegetables. So a lot of times I'll put on some music and, you know, just kind of sit and cut them all up at once. So I mentioned not kind of just chopping through the tree there. I'm going to show you what will happen if I do that. So I just kind of chop through the tree. Of course, this one's not going to really show you very well, but you start to get all of these little kind of like baby broccoli leaves. I don't really know the technical term for that, but it just gets really messy if you do it that way. So you can, if you're really lazy and just want to do it quick, you can do it that way. It's not going to hurt the broccoli, but a lot of your little pieces here will just kind of fall off and make a mess. So I'm going to throw all of those in there. I'm going to kind of put all of this off to the side. And actually that is the end of our vegetables. So I will just put that cutting board off to the side. And I'm going to rinse off my knife real quick. because we're also going to use the same knife for the chicken. All right, so the next thing that we've got here is we've got our chicken. And actually, I already cut this, so we're not going to have to. So this is just a couple of chicken breasts. And I've cut them kind of in half because these were larger chicken breasts, and chicken can take a fair amount of time to cook. So I've just cut them in 2 pieces here. And that's really all that is going on with them. So what I'm going to do, you can see that these are kind of wet. I'm just going to kind of blot them a little bit with a paper towel. You can use a regular towel if you want to. This is what I have available right now. So we're just going to kind of dry them off a little bit here. All right, and then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my mixing bowl here, and I'm going to put the chicken in it. Now, from here, I'm going to first rinse off my hands. And I'm just washing my hands fairly often here because I just don't want to touch raw meat and then touch something else in the kitchen because all of the juices from the raw meat can get on whatever I'm touching, and that there's cross-contamination and you can get sick from that. I am a fairly hands-on cook, so I really like to use my hands in the kitchen, so I end up just washing them off a lot, and I just keep a towel so I'm not constantly using paper towels or anything like that. Now, in here, I'm gonna grab my olive oil. I'm just gonna put a small amount on it, and this is gonna be probably about half a teaspoon, quarter of a teaspoon, but I like to measure this because it's really easy to just go heavy-handed and accidentally pour the entire thing. And this way you can just kind of do a little bit at a time. I'm gonna do a little bit of olive oil, and I'm gonna do a little bit of salt. And for this, we're gonna put it in your hand first before putting it in the container. And this is for the same reason, unless you wanna measure it, and then you can. So actually, let's do that because I'm gonna do about probably a quarter of a teaspoon of salt here. And actually, what's kind of funny is when I was making the one that's in the oven right now, right before this, is I was kind of rushing and I just grabbed this salt container and went to go shake it and didn't realize that it was this one that was open, and just poured an entire container of salt on that chicken. So that was an error, definitely, and something that we want to prevent. I'm just gonna throw that in there, and then this is just my pepper. So I'm just gonna put some pepper on the chicken. And this is just kind of a little bit, it's not an exact amount or anything like that. I generally like it to look like that. Then from here, I'm gonna mix with my hands. I am a hand mixer. You can do this with a spatula or a spoon or anything like that. I really like to just mix it with my hands though, because I can really kind of feel that it got all over the place. All right, so I've got my chicken done there. And now I am going to grab my baking sheet. And I'm just going to set this kind of in the middle here. Now, if I was doing a fattier cut of meat than the chicken breast, and by the way, if you want to get like a gigantic baking sheet, that works really well for these. I have these 2 smaller ones, so I chose to break it up into 2, just on 2 different pans. But if you have a larger baking sheet, that's great. But if you're using a fattier cut of meat, we've got the foil here, and all you can do is just scoop it off to the side, and then put another piece of foil here for your vegetables. You don't have to do that, but I like to do that for the fattier cuts of meat just because a lot of times the baking will cause it, all of the juices just go into the pan, and then you can end up with soggy broccoli or soggy sweet potatoes, and nobody likes that. So put this off to the side. I'm gonna wash my hands because I just rinsed with all of that meat. I'm just gonna rinse those there. Okay, and then I'm also, real quick, just going to check on this there and take this out, which is perfect. So the next thing that we need to do is make the broccoli and the carrots and the sweet potato. So I'm going to get this bowl, which is a clean bowl, and a different bowl than I used for the chicken. That is important. And all I'm going to do here is the same exact thing that I did with the chicken, only I'm going to save the salt and pepper for when I lay it out on the pan because I just find it's a little more even that way. And I'm just going to take a handful of the broccoli, a handful of the carrots. Let's do a couple more carrots there. My pan sheet is not very big, so I'm not going to do too much right now. But I'm going to do the same, or I'm just going to take, it's going to be about half a teaspoon of oil here. You know, the more vegetables, the more oil you'll use. But I've got that there, so I'm just going to mix these up a little bit. The goal here is that they're slightly shiny, so you don't want to use so much oil that they're completely saturated with the oil. That will end up with a very soggy vegetable. So you just want it to be slightly saturated. So all I'm going to do here, I've got these with the oil on it. I'm going to place them on the pan next to the chicken, and I'll show you kind of a little better when we put the sweet potatoes on that there. Then we're going to do the same thing with the sweet potatoes. You don't need to wash the bowl in between the sweet potatoes and the broccoli like you would with the chicken. You know, meat and vegetables. Generally, you can do the majority of your vegetables all the same, and then all of your meats separate. The same thing, just a little bit of oil here. Mix this up. And again, this is so slightly shiny. This is probably a tiny bit more than I want, so I'm going to grab a couple more sweet potatoes to throw in there. And this is another reason why I really like to use my hands, because I can just really feel like what's getting coated and what's not. Again, you can use a spoon, you can use a spatula if you want. Felix is back for more. I don't know if you can see, he also really likes sweet potato, so probably want some of that. Okay, so I'm gonna wash my hand before touching anything, or just rinse it off, get oil all over my hands. So then all I'm going to do, I'm gonna show you this here. So we have our chicken, our vegetables, and our sweet potato. And this is something where the exact order does not really matter. You know, you could put chicken, sweet potato, broccoli, or like I mentioned, kind of separated a little bit with the foil if it's a fattier cut of meat. The key is here is that you don't want things to be too crowded. And for this, you know, vegetables release a little bit of moisture when they cook. So if I just kind of pile them all up like this, they're going to get a little mushy. So I like to spread them out a little bit. And if you like them super crispy, you know, spread them out even more. And then the same with the sweet potatoes. So the closer together these are, the mushier they will end up. So I like to just spread them out a little bit. So they've got, each piece has a little bit of air. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then we've got the chicken in the middle. Now, one thing that I've mentioned a couple times is using separate cutting boards and separate knives, or washing between usage for the meat and the vegetables. We are using the same pan, and that's totally fine. You know, we're cooking them together, so that is fine to do. We just don't want to be prepping things using the same cutting boards. And you know, even in this situation where we can probably use the same cutting board, start out, do all of our vegetables, and then cut our meats on it. It's just generally a good practice to be in your kitchen, to always use separate tools. That way, like when you're in a rush and you're really not thinking about things, you know, which is going to be most of the time in the kitchen, you don't have to think like, oh, I need to grab a different cutting board. It's just kind of second nature, and you can do it without thinking. So The oven is set to 425. This temperature, you'll see temperatures for these anywhere from 375 to 450. I find that 425 ends with the juiciest chicken that, you know, of all of them. So I like the 425, and we are going to bake it for 15 to 20 minutes, so fairly short. If we were going to cook it for at like 375, we would have to cook it for longer. But since we are cooking it at a higher temperature, we can cook it for shorter. Also, the thicker the pieces of chicken, the longer you're going to have to cook. I have cut these chicken breasts in half because otherwise it can take a very long time. It can take 40, 50 minutes, even at 425. Depending on the thickness of the chicken breast that you get or the thickness of the piece of meat that you get. So I've kind of cut these in half. If you're doing frozen, I typically like to do those more at that 350 or 375 and just do it for a little bit longer. So I'm just gonna throw this into the oven here. And then we'll set a timer for that for that 15 to 20 minutes. And it's one of those things where, you know, you can check on it and just kind of move things around halfway through. And this is what it's going to come out looking like. So you guys saw me take this out about 10 minutes before this, so it has been sitting. We want to cook our chicken. Buddy bear, come on, we don't bark. Ever since I moved, Felix has decided that he is a dog who barks, so we are letting him know that he is not a dog who barks. But yeah, anyway, we want to cook until its internal temperature is around 165 degrees. We don't want to cook it under that because then it's not safe to eat, and we don't want to cook it really too far over that because then it's going to be really dry and dry out. So when you take it first out of the oven, and this isn't going to work exactly because I took it out of the oven, you know, a little while ago while we were talking, I like to use a meat thermometer and really just poke the meat and see that it comes out to 165. I had it up here, and I'm not sure what happened to it, but you don't need a fancy meat thermometer or anything like that. Just your standard one is fine. I will have to send you guys a link on what it looks like because it looks like it must have fallen off the counter while I was talking here. But basically you just want to, there is a probe on it. You want to put the meat thermometer into the piece of meat and it will read 165 and then you know that it is done. If you don't have a meat thermometer, there's a couple of different ways. First, you look at the juices and we'll see. This is, by the way, remember, this has been out of the oven for 15 to 20 minutes, so it's not hot. So don't just go and grab hot meat with, with your hands if it's just straight come out of the oven. But you'll see that kind of like the juices around this, they are clear. If these juices were pink, it would not be done. And clear or white for chicken. There's ways to know if it's done just by feel, but if you're not an experienced chef, you know, you're not going to really be able to tell that. So the other way is to just do a cut into the piece of chicken. We're going to open it up and I will show you this here. So you see it's got this nice white appearance. All the juices are white, and that is exactly what we want. Now, I don't want to go and just cut into all of my chicken and like cut it into strips or anything like that, because you'll notice that when I did that, a lot of the juices came out. So we want to keep the juices in as much as possible. So, you know, I like to just test the thickest cut of the meat if you don't have a thermometer and just see if it's cooked through that way. Now your vegetables, how to know if they are done. And again, I just touched my meat. So we are going to just rinse our hands real quick. For those, I like to use a fork. And I'm going to grab that fork in here. And all I do is really just put my fork through it. And, you know, everyone's really likes their vegetables at a slightly different temperature. I like mine a little crispy and not super soggy. So this is perfect. I want it to give just a little bit of give when I press into it. Same with the sweet potato. So you see it didn't like, I'm holding onto it and I have to actually put a little pressure. That's how I really like them. So that's it for the sweet potatoes and the vegetables. So that's really it. After I'm done here, what I really like to do is I use these containers, and these are the Rubbermaid, or whatever, they are Rubbermaid, whatever brand, like the take-alongs. I reuse these for years and they're perfectly fine. I just like these because they're cheaper. And I basically just split things up. So I'll put some chicken, some broccoli, some carrots, and some sweet potato in each container. And like I mentioned, my baking sheets are fairly small. Those are the ones that I was able to find. So I'll probably do another run with just vegetables after, but I can throw this in here. And then I've got a nice little meal. And this, between the two sheets with the ingredients that I gave you, or the amounts that I gave you, will make on average 4 meals. These will keep for about 4 days in the refrigerator. And you want to get them in the fridge as soon as you can. I'm going to grab a lid here. And I will just put that in the fridge. I could weigh and measure everything, but I'm not doing that right now personally. So I'm going to eyeball based off of my portions and everything. But yeah, so that's really it. I'm going to come up and see if there's any questions or comments so far on anything. Again, I'm washing my hands like every 2 seconds in this because I use my hands so much in cooking. I don't want to touch a computer. So let's see here. All right, looking at everything here. All right, I'm not sure it's gonna let me see all of the comments coming through. Can only see the very most recent. So I will go through them all after this when I can see them all and answer any in there. So if you have any questions or comments or anything there, let me know and I will answer them either in Facebook or in the Discord group as well. In addition, if you have any requests of things that you would like to learn how to do, recipes that you would like to make, we will be doing these, or the current plan is to do these meal prep fairly often. So, you know, we can start to talk about adding variety, adding different meats. Like I mentioned, chicken and broccoli is just a really standard one that's easy to make and it's healthy and delicious. So that's what I chose for the very first one, but we can really do anything. We can do Instant Pot meal preps. We can do, you know, crock pot ones. We can do freezer meals. There's so many different things that we can do. And yeah, this is just kind of the very beginning of the possibilities. So thank you all for joining me today. If you have any questions or anything like that, again, drop me either in Facebook or Discord, and I will see you all there. Okay, bye.